It is Friday, and it's time for Friday with Friends. And today I have my good friend Katie Green right here with me today. Yay! How you doing, Katie?
Good. Glad to be here with you, Simon. It's too bad we're so far away from each other.
I know, because you
love the pictures you put up on Facebook of walking in the woods. And
thank you.
Yeah. Is that stream near your home?
Yeah, it's not too far away at all. Actually, there's two streams. There's Great Brook, which is over there, and then there's Lion Brook, which is literally just down there. I mean, if I was to walk out of my door and walk straight down the hill, I would hit a road, and if I took that road a little bit to the left, then I would end up on the trail that would take me to Lion Brook Trail, which is a lot of fun. I don't go there very often because it's an in and out, and I like doing a loop rather than, I don't know why. I just one of the things that I prefer. So we've got some people here with us. It's always nice to have folks here with us. Let me get rid of that banner first though, because that's annoying me. And if you are here with us, please let us know who you are and where you're from, because that's always fun to know. And also, what I'm going to do is I'm going to pop into the chat and leave a big message about Sparks, which is the Northeast Storytelling Staycation. I hope you don't mind me doing this. What on earth is it doing? I think it's broken it down into lots of little messages. That's interesting, or at least on YouTube.
On my screen.
No, it won't. You won't see it. It'll pop up everywhere else, on Facebook and on YouTube. So this weekend, well, actually it started yesterday, and today and Saturday and Sunday, there are going to be performances and workshops. And Sherry Norfolk is the big headliner, and she's doing her magic. And we've also got people like Bill Lepp running a workshop, and Cindy Freeman is also doing a workshop on risky stories. Frisky and risky, actually. Katie, you might be interested in that one.
Yeah.
And I'm also doing a workshop on moving and zooming so that people can learn how to use this tiny space that we're working.
And you're so good at teaching that too. It's just great.
Well, thank you.
People conquer their fear of the computer.
Yeah, sometimes. Yeah, some people do get scared. Kristen's here. Kristen Pedamonte. Hello, hugs to both of you, joining you from my meditation spot at the creek. Oh, that's nice. If I see the wild mink, I'll let you know. Yes, please do. So, yeah, was it yesterday, Kristen? You saw twice you've seen a wild mink, but yesterday I think it was you got to take a photograph of it.
We had a wild mink that visited us when I lived in the woods in Princeton, Mass. And I watched it eat all of our fish out of the fish pond. It dove in, gobbled them up. The poor fish were jumping up and down trying to get away, but got them all.
Wow, that's ferocious.
Yeah, it's bad.
Yeah, we our old house. I was just checking on Mo, who's right asleep right next to me, and I don't want to roll over her paws if I move my chair. I don't want to roll over her paws or her tail, so I was just checking to see where she was. So it's good to see you, Lisa, twice this week. Says Kristen. Yeah, that's awesome. Quinn Golden. Hey, Quinn, it's good to see you too. Who else have we got here? Oh, sorry to eat all your fish.
Yes.
I know. So at our old house in Orford, we had the kitchen dining room opened out onto a deck. It was quite a big deck too. And we had a beam over the top of it and sides down and benches along the side of it. It was quite nice. And every once in a while, we had a bird feeder out, which probably wasn't the best thing, but we'd have all these little birds in the winter. And one day I was at lunch and I was looking outside the window, looking after Aiden, and I saw this pool of blood underneath the arch, and some feathers, and I was like, "Oh, what got this?" And then about 3 days later, this hawk dove down, smashed this tiny little bird into the ground, and then leaped up, like and it was up on the bar, on the beam, and started to snack out on this little bird, and it
Oh,
was like, wow,
oh,
real wildlife right
yeah,
here.
yeah. Oh gosh, whenever you start talking, one story leads to another
It's
constantly.
true. Stories beget stories.
Right. And so that hawk story reminds me of the time when I was still up in Massachusetts in Princeton, living in the woods. But we did have a little patch of green grass. And I was up on the second floor looking out of the window. Now, our adopted daughter, Althea, had gotten a red kitten. You know how beautiful those red cats are. Okay. That cat was laying out on the green grass and the sun was shining. It was just so, so pretty. The windows were open and I heard a hawk keening. You know how they go.
I do. I do.
The cat disappeared. The hawk got the cat. And it was not a big cat. It was, maybe 6 months old or so. But the hawk carried it away and then dropped it in the woods behind my house. So I would hear the cat crying, and I'd go out into the woods looking for the cat. Couldn't find the cat. Couldn't find the cat. And I did have a neighbor. I couldn't see the house, but he was a neighbor. And I told my neighbor about it. He said, it's somewhere out right behind my house. And so my neighbors were looking for the cat too. And the cat would cry and cry. But as soon as somebody got close, it would stop crying. So we never found the cat.
Oh my gosh! So it was.
Thing. So sad, Simon.
That is a sad story.
Oh, it is. I was teaching storytelling at Pittsburgh State College at the time to teachers. Yes, poor kitty. And every day I would go in and I would tell them about my poor cat, or Althea's poor cat. And it took days before it stopped crying. It was just awful. Just awful. Yeah. But
Yeah, because it probably got quiet because it thought there was some predator after it, so it would go quiet and wait for the predators to go away. And it's like, no, we're trying to help you. Oh, that's awful.
Yeah. But I think that was the worst thing that ever happened to us out there. I mean, we did have chickens too, but we thought we had the oldest chickens in the world.
Because they were so wise and they were still there. They never got eaten by anything.
Yeah, well, my husband's pretty good at thinking things through and thinking how he could protect them, and he made the chicken coop with the fence going back underneath. So the chickens were safe and they had plenty of space. But the shed got so old that the wood started rotting. And so the raccoons finally got in. It wasn't a fox. The fox kills them nice and neat, but the raccoons make a mess. So that's the way that's the way the last ones did.
Yeah, I've never had chickens, so I wouldn't know, but I've never realized that raccoons were messy.
Yeah, chickens are wonderful, wonderful things to have. I used to go out and have my coffee next to the chicken coop so I could commune with them. And they give good eggs. Once you've had fresh chicken eggs.
I know. You can't beat fresh eggs. They're the best. They really are. When we were in Orford, we have people that have chickens, and then when we moved here, we kind of went back to store-bought chickens. But I've found a couple of places not too far from here that are doing chicken eggs, and I think that instead of getting them at the grocery store next time, I'll give my $3 to the people up the road.
Oh my God, they can be 6 months old in the grocery store.
6 months? Really?
Really old. Yeah.
I had no idea.
I mean, I could be exaggerating, but I could be spreading a rumor, but that's what I was saying.
If you own a flock of chickens, says Quinn, you'll never starve to death. Well, that's true, but my daughter's not a big fan of eggs, and we're vegetarians.
Oh, well, and cleaning out the chicken coop is not fun.
Cleaning it out?
Yeah, you got to clean them out once in a while.
Oh yeah, I mean that's the same as any bathroom, isn't it? It's like, if you have animals and they're going to poop and pee everywhere, then you need to clean it up, because otherwise, then you get sores and all that kind of stuff. Raccoons are cute. Yes, I think I've mentioned this before.
Yeah, right.
when I lived in Portland, Oregon, my first job in the States was working in a coffee shop, and we pretty much downtown. It's like 15 blocks from downtown, and each block is, I want to say, 100 feet or something like that. So I'd walk to work every morning, and I had the early shift, and the first autumn, when it was getting dark, when it was still dark at night, or getting dark in the morning when I left, I like come out of the apartment, and I head down the road, and there's this big dumpster, for all our garbage right next to the building.
Uh-huh.
And I'm kind of like, it's 5 o'clock in the morning. I've had a shower, and I'm kind of awake, but not 100% awake. But I hear this, and I turn and look, and not 2 feet from my face is a mama raccoon. There's 2 raccoons on the dumpster, and then there are 3 raccoons in the street, and I'm right between them. And I'm like, whoa, you're all right, little mama? You're all right? I'm just, and she's standing up there like, and the last thing I want is like this mama raccoon to jump on my face and remove my nose. It's
away from my babies.
Yeah, right. I was like, it's all right, Mom. It's all right. I'm okay. I'm not gonna hurt anybody. It's just let's all be calm. I was like walking away with my facing her and everything. Not as dangerous as a mountain lion, but it was still pretty. It was that got me awake. I was bright-eyed and bushy-tailed after that.
Or a bear.
That too. Yeah. We've seen, but we have bears actually. So our road runs parallel to the main road in New London, right? And there's probably, I don't know, 100 yards, 200 yards at most between that road in front of the house and the main road up there. And so like our house backs up against the back of Colby Sawyer's maintenance building, and there's a pizza place up there and everything. And then across the street is Colby Sawyer. And we get bears walking down from the main roadside across our lawn and down into the woods.
Yeah.
I mean, it's like we're pretty rural. I mean, I never thought we were that rural, but when you have bears walking through your garden, presumably coming from across the road, across the main street.
Bears in our area, in our little 3 acres of Princeton, but neighbors would get bears. And we did have a moose walk across the yard, and another mountain lion early in the morning went across. And it was just such a treat because I watched it the whole time. It walked across and then down through the woods and then across the street. I could see it go into the woods across the street.
Wow. If I saw a mountain lion, I would be very excited.
Yeah.
And I'd also be like, ooh.
Mountain lion. Is it a mountain lion? No, bobcat.
Oh, bobcat. Okay, yeah, bobcats. Yeah.
I don't think they have.
Yeah. We get bobcats here in some places. I haven't seen one in this area, but they're in New Hampshire. We actually saw one running across the road when we were coming home one night.
Yeah. But that reminds me of like mountain lions. It's been on my mind because they've been talking about the Florida panther, and it's a yellow big cat, right? Yeah. And there was at one time the Florida panther was considered maybe extinct, and then they brought it back. This guy named Luke Dollar was one of the main people who brought the Florida panther back. And
where did he find it? Was it like in his basement or something?
I don't know.
I've got one. I'll start arranging.
He's some sort of college professor, and that was his study. He brought the Florida panther back. And now I just heard on the radio the other day, the Florida panther is again in danger of becoming extinct because so many people move to Florida all the time. So the traffic here is just totally disgusting. It's like Route 9 in Massachusetts on steroids. And so the Florida panther is getting hit and it's endangered again. So I was thinking, I want to tell that story. Cy Khan's story, the last panther in eastern Kentucky. And so I said, that'd be a great story to share right now. So I haven't told that for 40 years? And hi, Deborah Waller. So I want to tell that story again. It's a great story. Sai Khan told the story, and when I was a little kid, my Uncle Cooper told me that story on the front porch of Grandma's house in Virginia. So I said, and then Jennifer Justice. You weren't around, I don't think, Simon, when Jennifer Justice was part of the storytelling community. Have you ever heard of her? No. I mean, that's the thing that, people like me, we hop in and then we just disappear and we're unknown. But Jennifer Justice was a fantastic storyteller when Lane's was just beginning. And one of the stories she told was The Last Panther in Eastern Kentucky. So, I thought, can I still remember that story? I can remember parts, but not the whole thing. So I said, well, at one point I had the audio cassette of Jennifer Justice's telling of that story. I can't find any print copy of Sai Khan's telling of the story. And so I went through all of my audio cassettes. I still have boxes of them. It's not there.
Well, then you got to write your own.
Yeah, I could probably figure out something. I mean, of course I wouldn't tell it word for word or anything like she told it, and I don't know how her telling would compare to Sai Khan's telling, but my uncle told me that story. So it was really cool to hear it again as an adult.
Oh, I bet. It's interesting when you hear things differently as an adult than as a child.
Yeah. And the story's about one of those hotshot lawyers, his big car. And he is a wild game hunter, and he's going to get that last panther in Eastern Kentucky. And of course, he gets fooled at the end. So, it's a good story.
Can you tell it right now?
I don't remember it. I mean, he reads about it in the paper, and he's one of these guys who goes to Africa hunting, big game, and he's got the zebra skin on his couch, and he's got the, this and that. And so he goes out to find the last panther in Eastern Kentucky in his great big Lincoln Continental. And, he travels and travels. He finally finds somebody. He says, oh, yeah, it's back up there in the mountains. And, people have seen it. So he starts following it. And at the end, the panther fools him. And he gets to a place where he is totally trapped and he can't get away. But, I would have to spend some time dreaming and remembering before I had it down. There's something about he gets on one point in the mountains and the panther's on another point, and there was a little bridge or something between them, but the bridge breaks. And when he wakes up again, it follows the panther for days. When he wakes up again, he's on one side, the bridge is gone, and the panther's on the other side, and he's stuck. And it's such a satisfying story. I mean, you wish some of these guys are going to Africa to shoot elephants and wild game. It's.
Yeah, that sounds like a really good story. I'm gonna. So it's a true story. Is that what you're saying?
It's not true though. It's a folktale. Sai Khan told it.
Okay.
We might not be familiar with Sai Khan being English.
I am not. Right. But I'm going to see if I can find out, and I'm going to see if I can find versions of the story, because that sounds awesome.
I was trying to find it, so you Google it and you try to find it, and then I was doing the same thing with one of a video of Brother Blue too, because I wanted to find it. But there's academic libraries. Yes, Kristen. There's academic libraries that keep these old recordings. So at first, when I started looking for The Last Panther, I was also looking for a video of Brother Blue telling Miss Wonderlick, because I used to open every single one of my storytelling courses for teachers with Miss Wonderlick, Brother Blue telling Miss Wonderlick. And that is the story that made me a storyteller. And it doesn't exist. I used to get that video from a local library. All the libraries have done away with their VHS? What's it? VHS, VHFs? The big things. They're gone. Are you talking to me?
I found that if I muted myself, you sound better. So I muted myself. So yes.
Oh,
So
oh,
so yes, I have VHS tapes, and I also have a VHS machine, and
yeah.
they work still, and we watch them every
Yeah.
once in a while.
Well, I found there was one college library, it might be in North Carolina or somewhere,
Uh huh.
that has either the Saigon story or it has Brother Blue telling Miss Wonderland. Because I was thinking I would like to have the Brother Blue Miss Wonderland when
Hmm.
I was raising money for that piece of public art to go in Cambridge for Blue and Rue.
That would be amazing.
Mm-hmm.
That
But
would be amazing. Did I mute myself again?
no, you're there.
Okay, good. I'm actually looking at the Brother Blue thing. So there's one thing I want to mention. Quinn Gold. I'm not sure why that's up. All right, that was a bit weird. So Tony Cranston, I do want to give a shout out to Tony's show, and I was madly looking for a link just then because he's actually in London, yeah, and he's doing an all Scottish show. It's a Tony runs the talking radio. It's the oldest only. I don't know if it's the only. I don't think it's the only anymore, but it's the oldest, longest, most listened to radio show of storytelling in the UK, and there's poetry in it as well.
Oh,
So
Tony,
I'm
I
gonna.
want to talk with you someday.
Oh, he'll talk to you. He loves talking to storytellers for sure, for sure. And yes, Kristen just mentioned this. Talking heritage stories and performing arts is what Tony
Yeah.
just said. So Tony, if you could drop that link into the chat for your radio show, because there's a number of Scottish storytellers who are telling stories. It's an all Scottish
Yeah.
show, and I think that's going to be brilliant. And that's why I wanted to give a shout out to on the show, but I also wanted to shout out to Sparks.
Right.
So I need to
Yeah.
talking stories. Yes, Tony is doing wonderful work. Talking Stories East London Radio. When Kate is telling her story, because Katie does have a story that she's going to tell us. I'm gonna look up Tony's show and find the link to that because he posted it on Facebook.
Right.
So I'll find that link and I'll share that on this show because Tony's brilliant. I love Tony.
Yeah. So Tony might get a charge out of the town that I live in. The town I live in Florida is Dunedin, which is Gaelic for Edinburgh.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah. And
I should.
yeah, and my father's of Scottish heritage. One of his ancestors was a Covenanter.
Oh,
So I've been working on that story to tell.
that's going to be good.
Yeah.
Oh, here we go. Tony's got it. Mixcloud.com,
Thank you.
East London Radio, Talking Stories 50. Yay! Thank you, Tony, for doing that. So if anybody's watching this on YouTube and doesn't get that comment, then this is the link to this is the link. This
I'm
is
writing
the link
fast.
to write down to listen to Tony's show of all Scottish storytellers. And these are real live Scottish storytellers telling their stories, and it's going to be phenomenal. So, and Tony says his Scottish is ancestors as well. His ancestors are
Trader in London. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
What? One was hung outside the trade.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Oh my gosh, that's some good history, Tony.
In the 1600s, was it? I wonder.
I should have Tony on this show. Tony, you want to be on this show? You want to come and chit chat with me? We can talk about your Scottish ancestors that hung outside. I mean, we can talk about other things as well. But that's kind of a cool story. I like to hear that. Yeah, give me a shout out. Tony, pop me a message or send me an email if you want to be on the show, and I'll definitely have you because you're brilliant. I love you. I love what you do.
No.
So Katie, are you originally from Massachusetts? Because you lived in Massachusetts
No,
forever.
not in Massachusetts at all.
where
Like you,
you
I lived in a lot of different places. I was born in Virginia, down by Tennessee. I have relatives in Jonesboro. One of my ancestors, I understand, was the first mayor of Jonesboro.
Oh wow!
Yeah. And my relatives in Jonesboro say they used to go to stories once in a while, but so-and-so down the road tells stories better. You know?
Well, in Virginia, that might be true.
I mean, they did tell me some really good stories. But I was born there, and I lived in Hattiesburg, Mississippi, Long Beach, California, Houston, Texas. Most of my formative years in Massachusetts. I went to college in Ohio, and that's where I had my kids in Cleveland. Came back to Massachusetts, and Phil and I moved down here to Florida about 4 years ago because I got tired of black ice.
Yeah, black ice is kind of nasty.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, you should have moved. You should have moved to New Hampshire. We don't have it here.
Yeah.
So there you were complaining about all the people coming into Florida, and yet you're one of them.
I know. Yeah, it's like the people who get a place on Cape Cod, and then they say they should shut down the bridge.
Right, or they complain about the people that have been living there for like generations.
Yeah,
right?
yeah, right.
They hang their laundry outside. It's disgusting. I don't want to look at that. It's like, well,
Yeah.
don't live there then. You can buy another house somewhere else.
Right.
Yeah. Oh my God.
It's amazing how many ways we human beings can find to separate ourselves from the other.
Yeah, yeah, and the other doesn't have to be that other. It just has to be a little bit other.
Yeah.
And we do that thing. Yeah, I don't like. Yeah,
We do that to ourselves.
We're a weird species. We
Yeah.
really are.
Yeah, that's for sure.
I like what Rachel says. The more places you live, the more beauty you find around the world. Yeah, I think that's a true statement.
It is.
I really do. And then she goes on to say every place is beautiful.
Yeah.
Well,
some
it's in the eye of the beholder, right?
others.
Oh, Lisa says you should. Lisa Wilcox, good friend of mine, a new good friend of mine. She says you should move to North Carolina.
Yeah, you know what? I'm not going to move again, Lisa. I'll probably stay here until I die. Except I'm going to have to come up to Massachusetts. I've always, for years and years and years, had this fantasy that on October 5th, I'm going to lay down underneath a maple tree in its full glory and die. Wouldn't that be cool?
It would be cool.
Yeah.
See, I always had this dream. I always had this. I always envisioned that I would, when I was like younger, I always wanted to die as a rock star drummer, right? Playing the drums in a gig, because that's what I was like. That's what I really wanted to be. And then when I became a storyteller, I was like, oh, that'd be so cool to die on stage. And then I was like, well, most of my concerts are like with kids, and that would be kind of traumatic for the kids. It's like, is he messing around? What's he doing there, laying on the stage like that? Like, go and poke him. Tell him to get up and tell some more stories. Oh, he's dead. What? It's like, storyteller dies in front of 50
That's your educational event for the day, kids.
Yes. Yeah. Oh, Lisa likes that idea. I think she's actually talking about visiting. Yeah, you under the tree, actually. Yeah.
Oh.
And I agree. It's very specific. I like that. It's awesome. It's awesome. So, what have you been up to? I mean, you came from Massachusetts, doing a lot of like really good storytelling work, and then you moved to Florida.
Yeah, where I was really pretty well known, and I didn't need to do any publicity, which was probably I got very comfortable. did just what I wanted to do, just often enough to make me happy and challenged. And then we decided to move down here, which was a pretty good idea. Skiing became, as I aged, it was harder for me to put in as many hours on the ski slope. So, Mount Wachusett was in our backyard and 10 minutes away. So every morning at 8:30, be on the slopes. But,
you were living the life, Katie. You were living the life.
I'm getting to be an old lady. And so, I'd be tired. And so I didn't put in as much time. So Florida started looking more and more better, especially with black ice. And so we came down here where I'm nobody. We bought this house that's made out of cinder blocks. And we thought we would just be here, a couple months in the winter time. And we did that for a few years. And then one year we drove back up to Princeton and looked at that long driveway and the big house and said, we do not need to complicate our lives this much. And so now this little, I call it the LOH, the Little Orange House, is our home. And Bill has transformed the yard, which when we moved in was a sand pit full of anthills and weeds. And now it's just absolutely gorgeous. That's his passion. And
That's so nice. That's great that you can actually convert it and make it look something like something special. Yeah.
Oh, it's kind of embarrassing because everybody who comes to visit us takes out their camera and starts taking pictures.
Well, that's what I do when I go and visit my family in the UK, and I come back and I look at our lawn, and I'm thinking, yeah, it's gonna stay just like that. I'm not.
So anyway, I moved down here, and nobody knows me. I went to the Florida Storytelling Festival. I saw you there. And then COVID hit. So my plans now as far as storytelling, I'm going to be doing some work with the Martin Luther King Center here. So they have a great kids program in the summertime. So I'll be telling stories to the little ones, and I'll be doing I won't be in charge, but I'll be participating in their teen leadership training, which I'm looking forward to.
Yeah, I bet. Working with kids is so rewarding, I think, anyway. And so going back to Brother Blue, though, isn't it you that's trying to get that hysterical plaque put up?
Yeah. He's the reason I became a storyteller.
So tell me the story about that plaque and why you decided to actually very, very quickly before you do that. Kristen says, "Where in Florida are you?" And she also says, "Little Orange House sounds like a lovely retreat."
It is a lovely retreat, Kristen, and we do have a guest room. And sometimes New England storytellers come down here and spend some time. Dunedin is on the Gulf Coast, so it's civilized, quieter than the North Coast where all those New Yorkers go. And it's a very artsy town, actually. So there's a lot going on here. It's next to Tampa, next to Clearwater. So,
okay.
So, Brother Blue.
So yes, let's talk about Brother Blue. But Rachel said you may need to explain Brother Blue first. So those people that don't know him, we haven't got many people on the show today, and I think all the people here probably know who he is or have a rough idea. But in case they don't, in case somebody staggers,
tune in later because they see, oh wow, Katie Green was talking to Simon Brooks. I can't miss going to see Katie Green.
That's right.
So anyway, Brother Blue died in 2009, and he was a storyteller. He was the storyteller for Cambridge and for Boston. He held degrees from Harvard and Yale. He told stories on the street, in the prisons. He told stories at festivals. He told stories around the world. And he was married to a wonderful, wonderful woman named Ruth Edmonds Hill. Ruth Edmonds Hill is a fantastic oral historian. She is now in her 90s. And she worked at the Oral History Center at Radcliffe Schlesinger Library, which is part of Harvard now. And I met her when I took an oral history course there. So Blue and Ruth are just very, very well known through Massachusetts. And I say that Blue's the reason I told stories, even though I grew up listening to stories. I was working in my van. I had a 1976 Chevy van, and I was building the insides of it so that it would have beds and a place to eat and stuff, so I could take my 3 kids on long weekends to Cape Cod, and we could live in the van. And so there I was out in my front yard working on the van and with the radio on, and that was back in the days of Lee Ellen Marvin's The Spider Web, which was a radio show with storytelling on. And Brother Blue, I heard this story about Miss Wonderlick, told by Brother Blue, which was just wonderful. It's about how a teacher saw him and recognized him, this little black kid, and it changed his life. And the story was so beautiful. So okay, ahead. The following fall, I went to a storytelling festival called the Three Apples. And I sat behind Brother Blue and also Jay O'Callahan and Ruth Hill. And there I was right behind, because whenever I go to storytelling festivals or theater or ballet or whatever, I want to be right in the front row. And there I was. There's this man all dressed in blue with ribbons coming all over and butterflies painted on his face and on his hands. And I thought, well, he's certainly interesting. Didn't know it was the same guy who I'd listened to on the radio. And then he got up and he told Miss Wonderlick. And one of the things that Blue used to do when he'd tell stories is he would say, I can see into the center of you. And the stories come from the middle of me to the middle of you. And, I totally believed him. And when he talked about love and how he loved it, I knew he was talking to me. And I'm sure everybody in the audience knew the same thing. Blue was talking to each person there because he truly believed in love. He used to say, I'm a fool for love. And he was a real gift.
He was, and he was one of those people that he was out there on a different plane to the rest of us. He was one of those like mad geniuses.
Yeah.
He would rap Hamlet and other Shakespeare, King Lear, I think it was actually.
Yeah.
And Ruth, he was like a kite, right? And Ruth was the one that was holding the string and come on back down.
Yeah, right.
And Ruth is just an amazing human being too. Yeah. Absolutely.
And he never changed his style to adapt to the white audience. So when I was at Invisible Hearts, when I was at Jonesboro one year, I was standing in front of some people talking about Blue, and they were saying how they didn't like him at all. And I was saying, my God, how and then it's so amazing how people can love one storyteller and hate another. And there's all different styles.
There are, and I don't think anybody really. I wonder. So I met Brother Blue a number of times, and I went to Story Space when it was Blue Space, and he and Ruth were there a number of times, and. There was something about him that made me feel uncomfortable, and I don't know what it was. Right? He was absolutely brilliant, and I loved the man.
Yes.
And I was happy. I was more than happy to watch him work his craft from the side. Right. And he and I had a conversation, and I just didn't know how I should, respond or anything like that. I just, I am socially awkward, believe it or not. And when somebody like that comes in and and
takes
comes
over.
And takes over. It's like, whoa, I'm like backing away until I can figure out. And I never got to meet him enough times to figure him out, but I always loved what he did and admired what he did and had great admiration for him. And I wish that he'd had longer on this planet so that I could get to know him more and feel comfortable with him.
Well, I got to spend a lot of time with him when I was putting together Sharing the Fire. Because when you put together such a large conference, and then
in Boston, he's going to be there.
Well, but when the conference finally arrives, you just sort of there, and just sort of making sure that this one's for there and that was there and all of that. Blue sat with me and we really got to talk very deeply. So I loved him.
So Tony Cranston actually brings up an interesting topic, because when I made you full screen then, people saw the poster of Lenin behind you.
Oh dear.
And Tony says, interesting poster of Lenin behind you. especially with the Chinese
Oh, you
underneath
saw
it.
the Chinese
He
underneath.
did, he did. So do you want to explain that to everyone?
Yeah, yeah. Well, I am not so good at with the history, Tony. You could probably tell it better. But actually, that poster is a poster that my husband got when he was 13 years old. My husband grew up in Manhattan on the east side, upper west side. And he got that poster for $5 in a bookstore. And yeah, it's during the time when Russia and China were working together. And the fun part about this particular poster is, can I go through the story? Do we have enough time? It's yeah, okay.
Yeah, I bet it's worth more than $5 now. Jeez.
I'm
Sorry.
doing a storytelling tour down from New England across Virginia into North Carolina and Tennessee. And I had come to Bristol, Tennessee, Virginia, and the lady who had hired me there for the school was offering me hospitality. Okay, nice, huh? So there I was, and then I said, oh, could I use your telephone? I want to call my husband. And she said, oh, of course, it's right over there, you know, your phone. So I went over and I picked up the phone, but I noticed there was an envelope on the desk. And not to be nosy or anything, but I couldn't help but notice that the return on the envelope said it was from somebody named Jerry DeVault. My mother was a DeVault. This Jerry DeVault lived in Jonesboro. I went, oh, wow. And so I told my host that my mother was also a DeVault. She said, oh, well, that's my best friend. You know, I'll call her up. Well, she gave me hospitality when I went to Jonesboro. Turns out that they were distant cousins. And
no way.
wow, yeah, it was really fun. The guy's name was Ed DeVault. He just recently passed away. Loved him. I love him better than my first cousins, almost. But he and I had so much in common. And don't you know that when I went into his house, he had, well, where is it? I don't even know if you can see it. He had the very same poster on his wall that we had. There, now you can see it. He had the same poster up in his wall that we had in our house. And not only that, he had hosted this woman from Minsk, Russia, who I had stayed with when I was in Russia. So it was just such a treat how things crisscross.
That wasn't the artist that had done the picture, though, was it? Because that would be a really small world.
That was a poster. I'm sure that artist is long gone.
Yeah, probably. Yeah. Kristen also said it was wonderful that you had so much time in Brother Brew's presence, and I totally agree.
Yeah, I
totally agree.
Yeah.
And Tony Cran says, brilliant story, because he's British, and us British people, we like to say brilliant. It's like Americans have awesome, and we have brilliant.
Brilliant, huh? Oh, well, thank you.
No, thanks for sharing that story. That was excellent. In fact, while we're sharing stories, do you want to share a story?
Okay.
The one that you had really prepared to tell?
Well, there's a story. You know how some stories just don't leave you alone? I mean, you know that?
Errant children, they're like, tell me, come on, tell me. Yeah, I do know that.
Yeah. Excuse me, my nose is dripping. It's running like mad, and my allergies are acting up. We have lots of pollen here in Florida. But anyway,
and bugs and alligators.
We do have alligators, yes. Mm-hmm. Lots of osprey. So anyway, this story is a story that I ran across in a book that sat on my shelf for years and years. I didn't really pick up. It's Folktales from Morocco. I think the name of the book is The Last Storytellers. And it's by somebody named Richard Hamilton. And it's basically a collection of stories that he collected from various storytellers and then that he translated from the original Arabic. And I read this, and the story wouldn't leave me alone. I've told it on on 2 swaps. And I don't think anybody likes this story as much as I do. But I'm just really called to this story. And I thought I wanted to share it with you, Simon, and anybody else who might like to comment on it. For me, it's a story that doesn't end when the story ends. But anyway, this is a story about a sweet.
Can't wait.
Huh?
I can't wait. I'm excited.
There was a sweet seller a long, long time ago who made sweets, candies, and sold them. He lived in Marrakesh, a city in Morocco. And as time went on, he became more and more poor. He was not a successful sweet seller. So the day finally came when he didn't even have enough money to buy the honey to make the sweets. And he said to himself, I'm just leaving Marrakesh. I'll see if I have better luck somewhere else. And so he picked up the only possession he had left, was a little tin lantern with red glass in it. Everybody in Marrakesh had one because they made them in Marrakesh. He picked up his lantern and he left home. And he crossed over the high Atlas Mountains safely. He was cared for by the Berber people who lived in the mountains. And then he came to a desert and he walked across the desert and he came to a valley that was lush and green and beautiful. There was a wonderful city there with tall minarets. And the man, Kadur was his name, Kadur walked into the city, and because there were some men chatting, he started talking with them, and they recognized right away that he was a stranger because of his dialect. And nobody came to that city. And because it was such a special event, they took Kadur to the Pasha, and the Pasha gave Kadur hospitality. He stayed there 3 days, as the Quran dictates, and he was given the best food, the most magnificent treatment he'd ever had. It was the best 3 days of Kadur's whole life. And at the end of 3 days, it was time for him to leave. But it was expected that he should give a gift to the Pasha for such hospitality. He had nothing. Nothing. All he had was this tin lantern. Well, he hoped that the Pasha would understand the intention of offering the lantern as a gift. And so he gathered up his courage and he presented it to the Pasha. And the Pasha took the lantern and stared at it, and the entire house was silent. Kadur had hoped he hadn't offended the Pasha. But then the Pasha's face lit up, and he was delighted. But you see, in this town, there was no such thing as glass. He'd never seen glass before. And when a candle was lit in the lantern, it flickered so beautifully behind that red glass. It was a wonderful gift. But when one receives such a fine gift, one must return the gift with something equally valuable. And all the Pasha had was, I have to tell you, in the Pasha's home, jewels were piled up in every corner. Diamonds, rubies, emeralds, just cast on the floor. And all the furniture seemed to be made of gold. The people drank their drinks out of metal cups or gold. So what could the Pasha give this stranger? Well, All he had was this. Everybody had ordinary. So he gave him a whole lot. He gave him 3 camels loaded with jewels, gold. And Pasha left to return home. Now, when he left Marrakesh and he went through those mountains, there were robbers there, but he was protected by his poverty. And now, going through the mountains with all of these riches, he was protected by the will of Allah. And he made it home safely. And Kadar decided he was not going to be a sweet seller anymore. So he bought a lovely piece of land and he planted almond trees and orange trees and lemon trees. It became a beautiful garden with jasmine filling the air and the sounds of nightingales singing. And he built a marvelous house. And of course, he was the envy of the town. And many, many young women were interested, as were their fathers and mothers. And Kador selected the most intelligent, kindest, most beautiful woman to be his wife. Now, what I didn't tell you is that Kador had a brother, Said, who was a merchant. And all that time that Kador was becoming more and more poor, his brother was becoming more and more successful. And he did not acknowledge Kador as his brother. Oh, but now he reconnected his brotherly relationship. He wanted to know where all of these riches came from. And he couldn't find out until he just was outright rude and he asked Kador how he became so wealthy. Now, Kador was a simple man. He trusted people. He was never jealous. And so he told his brother Said the entire story from the beginning to the end. And Said became obsessed. If my brother returned with all of those riches just for that lantern, just think what I could have. And so Said sold all of his merchandise. He even sold his house. And he loaded camels and he went into the mountains. And he hadn't been into the Atlas Mountains for more than 2 days when the robbers set upon him, stole everything, took his camels. They beat him unmercifully and left him for dead. And when Said revived himself, he was too embarrassed, ashamed to return home. And so he continued the journey. And he did come to that same lush valley with that city. And he was taken to the home of the Pasha. And there, Said was treated royally. Oh my goodness, because he'd been injured. Beautiful women rubbed medicinal oils into his wounds. Peaceful music was played to help him heal. He was given the very best food and treated beautifully for 3 days. And 3 days it was time for him to leave, according to the Quran. And so he thought about all of those riches that had been stolen from him. And what would he give as a gift to the Pasha? He had nothing. It was all taken. But he still had his watch. It was old. It wasn't even gold. It was brass. But it was all he had. And he hoped the Pasha would understand his intention. And he offered it to Pasha. The Pasha took the watch and looked at it in puzzlement. And then his eyes lit up as if he had seen the stars for the very first time. Something here that measured time. And just like the glass in that little lantern, the people in this town had never seen a watch. And the Pasha again was uncomfortable. What on earth could he give to his guest of equal value? But he had his servant bring the tin lantern with the red glass up from where it was kept in a treasury. And he gave Saeed a wonderful gift, although he hated to part with it, of the tin lantern with the red glass.
Yay!
So Saeed went back home with his lantern, and the robbers did not bother him at all. So that's the story.
That's excellent. I love that story. So I tell a similar story. I haven't told it in a long time. The Great Turnip, and it's the same thing. There's these two farmers. One of them's a rich landowner, the other one's a poor farmer, and both of them are on the way to their fields to sow pumpkins.
Oh.
Or parsnips. Sorry, parsnips. No, not parsnips. Turnips. I'll get it right in a minute. Turnips. And so they pass this old man. Both of them pass this old man, and the old man says, "Oh, good day. Where are you going?" And the rich landowner farmer just like, I'm going to plant a turnip. Well, that's what will grow then. And so the young man is walking down the same road, passes the same guy, and says, "Oh, what's going on?" So I'm hopefully gonna plant a whole field of turnips, and well, that's what you will grow then. And so the landowner gets all of his acres seeded with turnips, and the poor farmer seeds his little tiny lot of land with his, and they both grow, except in the landowner's land it's just like this one massive turnip. And he's like, "What am I going to do with this? I can't do anything with this. It's stupid." And then he sees, because his land abuts this other farmer's land, he sees this tiny lot filled with all these beautiful, perfect pumpkins. And he says, "All right, then I'm the landowner. You're gonna give me all your turnips, and I'll give you mine." And the landowner thinks, "Oh, that's the poor guy thinks, oh, that's a pretty good deal. But no, I'm all right. This is I have enough here to look after myself. I don't need anything from you. Thank you very much." He's like, "I'm the landowner. That's what I'm gonna do." And so he can't argue with him. So he shows up with this massive turnip, and the young farmer is like, "What am I going to do with this? I can't sell this. Like, if we start eating it, it's not going to last us through the winter, right? Because it'll start to rot." And his wife, because in all these folk tales, it's the wife who makes the good suggestion, right? She says, "Go take it to the king. Show the king. He'll be amazed by it. He'll give you some sort of reward, which will probably be better than the turnip for us, because he would never have seen something as massive of that." And he's like, "Oh, that's a good idea." So off he goes, and he shows it to the king, and the king's like, "Whoa, that's a turnip and a half. I'm going to give you lots of gold." And so he gives him lots of gold, and on his way back home, it kind of like it touches on the Arabian Nights with Ali Baba. He borrows a scale to weigh the treasure, right? And he's like, well, he's never asked for a scale before. What does he want a scale for? So he puts fat on the bottom, and when he returns it, there's coins stuck on the bottom, and he's like, "Oh wow, well, I'm going to have to give him a gift," because then he hears that he took the young farmer took the turnips. So, well, I'll give him a better gift than that. I'll take the king all these horses, because I raise the best horses. So he takes the king his finest horses, and the king in return says, "Oh, for such a fine gift, I'll give you this turnip." So it's a similar like flipping around, which I really like. But I like that. That's such a good story. Where is that from originally?
It's from this book called The Last Storytellers, Tales from Morocco. And I think the editor of the collector's first name is Richard. It's last name Hamilton. And it's so funny because I have no idea where I got that book or when I picked it up, but I just ended up looking at it. I love the circle back. Yes, it is thought provoking. Yes, I like all those stories that have the two brothers too, or the two neighbors. But there's just something about getting the Tin Lantern back, isn't it? That says so much. Yeah.
It does. Sorry, I keep muting myself so that your line is clearer. Sorry. So yeah, it does, because it's not about the king being greedy or wealthy or anything like that. This is what he sees as valuable.
Yeah.
Right. And so the king is genuinely giving what he sees as this incredible gift to this guy that sees it as, a trinket.
Everybody has it. Yeah, everybody has it, and we all have it. I guess sometimes one of the times I told it, somebody said, "Oh, I couldn't even relate to the story at all." And another time, the only other time I told it was when I was asked, "Well, what is it? Why do you want to tell that story? Isn't that it? I mean, why do we choose the stories that we choose to tell?"
They choose us. They choose us.
Yeah, but what is it about the story that makes us have that connection?
Well, I think, I mean, it depends on what's going on in our lives a lot. I mean, I look at the stories I've recorded on my CDs, and I recorded those stories on my CDs because they're stories I love and find very strong connection to. Not that I don't love the other stories that I tell.
Oh, yeah.
But it's, I look back at these stories and I find that, I was going through this when I was telling this story, and I was going through that when I was telling that. So I was going through this my stories are very autobiographical.
Right. Yeah.
I shouldn't. Shh, don't.
No, that's true. We just don't like to own it, maybe sometimes, because that makes us vulnerable. But why was I attracted to that story? And now I am thinking it's that I moved to Florida and I lost so much of what I loved in New England that was common to me, that I took for granted. So I don't know.
So maybe you're the older brother then. No, but in a different way though.
Yeah.
Maybe. But you took everything that you love. Well, no, I guess not. You're the younger brother.
I didn't lose anything. I mean, I have to say that. But
yeah,
I think it's the appreciation of the common, the appreciation of
the little things, the things that mean not stuff, right?
Yeah, like what we need. What I think we need to do in life is to pay attention. Attention, because I think that everything is sacred when we pay attention.
I would agree with that. Yeah, so, I would totally agree with that. Yeah.
So, but stories and why we are attracted to them. Like this summer on the Hans Christian Andersen series, I told Laura Sims that I would tell The Little Mermaid, and that's the first story I ever told at the statue a long time ago, and that's the story that explained death to me.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. When I was 7 years old, my sister died. She was 4. She had leukemia. And when you read Andersen's story, not the Disney-fied version, the sea witch explains death to the Little Mermaid. And it's the way I tell it, it is not so much that the Little Mermaid wants to kiss the prince so that she will be a human being forever. But no, she wants to kiss the prince so that she can go and live in the starry heavens forever. And
Oh.
if you read Anderson again and hear about the daughters of the air, and just think, it's a whole different read on it. And the prince is just a venue, just like Prince Charming. I mean, in fairy
A
tales.
venue, yeah, he's just a
Yeah.
nothing, right?
Well, I mean, he is the wish for perfection, for comfort, for love, for everything that every person wants is the prince. And so the Prince Charming is necessary. But is it that one individual person or the whole thing?
I like that take on it. I like that take on it a lot, actually. I like that take on it a lot.
So I'm really eager to tell that story again. The first time I told it at the statue, the first time I told it at the statue, and there I was telling the Little Mermaid, a story that's very, very deep in my heart and soul. And over in the next nearby, the Hirachi band is playing. So,
That's awful. No.
but the story hung together and people did manage to follow it. But I just thought, oh my God, I never could have imagined this in my wildest dreams.
Telling the story to mariachi next to the Hans Christian Andersen statue in New York City. So did any of the kids stand up and say, "No, that's the wrong story. It doesn't end like that"?
No. When I first started telling, that was one of the early stories I told, and I remember telling it in a Catholic school. And I was wondering. See, one of the things that happened here, Simon, is I chose this story, I developed the story, I recorded the story on my first audio cassette. And then I walked into a movie theater one day and there was Walt Disney's Little Mermaid staring at me in the face. And I couldn't believe it.
Yeah, that was me and Gilgamesh.
Yeah.
Not Gilgamesh, sorry. Beowulf. I
Beowulf.
was working really hard on it and I was trying to make it work and I was having all these problems with it.
Mm-hmm.
And then the movie came out, and I was like thinking, well, maybe now's the time to really do it, but I could not make the story work. And I was just
Well,
like,
I never watched Disney's movie of The Little Mermaid. I still haven't.
You shouldn't. It's awful.
And Althea, our adopted daughter, was watching it nonstop with all of her friends. So, every once in a while I'd be going through the room and I'd go, oh, I don't want to know that. I don't want those images in my head.
Yeah, I can totally see why. I mean, Disney does do some good stuff.
But what I ended up doing with it was inviting a comparison. What's the same? What's different? So it was good.
Well, that's good. So, Rachel Headmanager, I popped this up very briefly. We're usually every character in the story. We are complicated as human beings, even the darker sides, but especially the good side.
Yes,
Excuse
absolutely.
me. And I think that's definitely true. And I think that's also what a lot of people, by people I mean therapists, some therapists say that that's the same with our dreams. We are every character in our dreams, which is really interesting. And then Kristen also wants to put her note up here.
Oh, my sister.
Yeah, stories offer such healing, beautiful perspective on why the Little Mermaid wanted to kiss the prince. And so grateful having heard your story today, Katie.
Yeah, well,
Just beautiful.
I mean, one of the interesting things that happened to me when I'm a Quaker, and when I first started learning about the Religious Society of Friends, the Quakers, I went to a week-long retreat that was actually about social justice issues. And one of the things I learned, or I was told, by one of the people, is that something good comes from every bad thing. And my first reaction was, how could something good possibly come from having my sister die when I was 7? Okay. And through the years, I realized that the stories I was told by my loving, well-meaning Christian parents did not fit for why my sister died. And when my aunt read me The Little Mermaid, that fit. That fit.
That's amazing.
Yeah. And so I think that because of that happening in my childhood, it really opened me up to hear stories in different ways and to maybe not believe, or, just my parents totally believed what they told me, and I'm sure it gave them peace and comfort. But everybody hears things differently, and I don't think that one is absolutely right and one is absolutely wrong.
Yeah, I totally agree with you.
It opened me up to stories and hearing differences, and that it's a good thing.
It is a good thing. It's a great thing. Well, I too am sorry that you lost your sister. I can't imagine what that must have been like, especially at that age. I mean, I think about losing my siblings at my age, and it's like, it's not something I'm looking forward to at all.
Yeah, right.
As the eldest, I stand a better chance of like going popping my clogs before everybody else does. So I won't have to deal with it. So we'll see.
Yeah.
We'll see. Well, Katie, we have gone an hour and 10 minutes. And,
oh my.
Yes, no, it's been fabulous. It's been wonderful chatting with you, and your story was absolutely awesome. So thank you very much for sharing that. I'm definitely going to see if I can find that story because it was so good. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much indeed for being here with Katie and I. Again, this is Katie Green. Oh, I didn't put Katie's website up. Hang on, let me put that up in case you're interested. I'll also drop it into the chat after the show. This is Katie Green. So it's katiegreenstories.com/KTG1.0 archive.
Yeah, that's the archive. That's from when I used to live up in Massachusetts.
That's right. It's when she used to earn the big bucks. That's when she was like going from school to school doing her historical reenactment thingies. What are they called? Because I wrote this down. Like,
I think they call it persona.
Oh, okay. Historical. When Katie does her hysterical persona. Historical personas.
Right.
Thanks, everyone. Take care. Oh, and there's one more comment that just popped in. Was that popping what? Popping your clogs? No, that's not a Simonism. That's a real. Don't you say that over here? Popping your clogs?
No.
Okay, yeah. Pushing up daisies.
Yeah.
You have that one, right? Yeah. Kicking the bucket. Yeah, you must have that.
Being on the right side of the grass.
Yes, I like that one. That's one of my favorites. Anyway, what a way to end a show.
All the stories have happy endings.
They do. We're still here. We're still on the right side of the turf. So that's good. Thanks, everyone, for being here. Take care, and I'll keep you posted as to whether we have a show next week or whether I start going bi-weekly or every other week, if that's the right phrase. I'm not sure. Every other week. We'll see. Anyway, take care, everyone. It's been great to have you here. Katie, fabulous. It's always good to chit-chat with you. It's been marvelous. Thanks. Bye.